Welcome to the Connect with TrueSight webinar series. During today's session, you're able to ask questions to our panelists. The presentation and Q&A will be published a week from today's date to our YouTube channel, as well as the community's post. Today's topic is on TSSA, troubleshooting best practices for Windows patching, and I'll turn it over to Rohit Sharma to take us through this content. Over to you, Rohit.
Thanks, Greg, and hello everyone. I am Rohit Sharma, a Senior Technical Support Analyst. I've been with BMC Customer Support Organization, supporting TrueSight Server Automation, formerly known as BladeLogic Server Automation or BSA, for the past 6 years. In this webinar, we will talk about the process of patching Windows servers in TSSA. We will talk about troubleshooting various errors that may occur either in patch catalog update job, patch analysis job, or patch remediation job. First of all, let's understand what is TSSA Windows Patch Management. TrueSight Server Automation enables system administrators to automate the process of patch management, which is otherwise complex and time-consuming. TSSA holistically manages the patch process, helps administrators to automate the creation of a local patch repository, run analysis to identify missing patches, and install using automated patch deploy jobs to meet organizational standards. These are the tasks within TSSA patch management. Creating a patch catalog via patch catalog update job. Identifying patches that are required via patch analysis job. Deploying required patches to targets requiring remediation via patch deploy job. And rerunning a patch analysis job to confirm that the servers are compliant after running remediation and there are 0 missing patches on the server. During the course of this webinar, we will speak about all these tasks. I will start with the patch catalog creation via patch catalog update job. Before creating a catalog update job, we need to ensure that these prerequisites are met. A repository server with ample disk space and a RSCD agent installed. Patches are downloaded and stored on the repository server. We will also need internet access on the TSSA application servers or on the patch repository server. Based on where the internet access is in the environment, a catalog update job can be classified as an online catalog update job or an offline catalog update job. The online catalog update job requires the TSSA application server to have access to the internet. The application server will download the patches and store it on the patch repository server. Now, in an air-gapped environment, if the application servers do not have access to the internet, an offline catalog update job is used. This requires an offline downloader to download patches on the repository server and run an offline catalog update job via TSSA console. Now let's take a few minutes and see how an online catalog update job is created. In the interest of time, I'll not demo the offline catalog update job in this webinar. The BMC knowledge article mentioned in the slide contains a video link which talks about how to create an offline catalog update job. A direct YouTube link to a playlist containing the video will also be shared at the end. Before we start creating a patch catalog update job, I would like to take a moment to show you about Ivanti's, formerly known as Shavlik URLs used in TSSA. So we'll click on Configuration, Patch Global Configuration, and Shavlik URL configurations. So these are the two URLs that are listed here. TSSA uses Ivanti's engine to scan Windows servers to identify and install missing patches. These URLs are configured in Patch Global Configuration, which helps us to download patches and run scans. Ivanti consolidates the list of patches released after Microsoft Patch Tuesday and updates them in these URLs. When a catalog update job is executed, TSSA reads the Ivanti metadata files and downloads the patches based on the filters selected in the patch catalog update job. These patches are directly downloaded from Microsoft or other vendors. The metadata files just contain the information such as download URLs and detection logic of these patches. The URLs are configured here out of the box and you do not need to add or modify anything. Now let's create a patch catalog update job. I'll cancel it. I'll expand the depot workspace. Go to the patch catalog folder. I'll select this demo folder. I'll right click, new, patch catalog, Windows patch catalog. I'll put a name here. I'll create a patch for Notepad++. For this demonstration, I'll use a repository server. So as you can see, I'm using a Linux based repository server. For Windows, you can use non-Windows servers as repository servers as well. So there's no constraint. I'll select the folder here. I'll now select the product. Notepad++ it is. I'll select it. Now I wanted to talk about this download from vendor option as well. When this option is checked, the patch catalog update job downloads all the available patches for the selected folder on the repository server and update the related information in the patch catalog. So for example, I have selected Notepad++, so all the relevant patches will be downloaded on the repository server if I check the download from vendor checkbox. So if the download from vendor box is unchecked, the catalog update job connects to the Ivanti URL and downloads the metadata file. It then reads the file and starts adding the patches applicable to the filter selected in the catalog, but it does not download them. When this option is used, only the patches that are identified as missing on the server are downloaded in the remediation phase of a patching job. Leaving the download from vendor unchecked saves disk space, as only the patches that are applicable or missing on the target servers are downloaded. So for this demonstration, I'll leave it unchecked. I'll click on the job options. I'll select execute the job now. These are some of the other tabs: notification, depot object. We can specify a RBAC policy here, job properties in case you want to run the job in debug mode, set timeouts, etc. Permission in case you want to give another role permission to this patch catalog. I'll use the default settings and hit OK. When I hit finish, the catalog update job is going to start. So as you can see here, the catalog update job is starting. It might take a time, so I'll close this and I will show you the results of a catalog update job that I have created previously. I'll double click and open it. I'll go to the results tab. As you can see the run here, if I click on the run here, I'll see the patches added 0, updated, the numbers are listed here. I'll click on the first run. This is where the patches were added eventually. I'll right click on the run, do a show log, and this is what the log looks like. So this was all about Windows patch catalog update. We'll move forward and see some of the major issues that are reported which are related to the Windows patch catalog update job. One of the common requests that we get related to a Windows patch catalog update job is, how do I add a new product in my filter list? Filters limit the amount of information brought into the catalog, and these filters are defined in product categories XML file. In the demonstration next, we will see how to export, edit the product categories XML file, how to add tags, and use the new file in TSSA. I have now logged into the console. So in this demonstration, I'll try to add the product Edge in the catalog. Let's see if it is there in the filter list already or not. So I'll create a new patch catalog. I'll hit the filter list. I'll search for Edge. As we can see, it's not there. I'll cancel it. I'll first download the product categories.xml file from TSSA application server. I'll export it. I'll go to patch global configuration again, Windows tab. At the bottom I see Windows filter configuration file. I'll export it, and I'll export it on any server. Let's say target 1, C, and the downloads folder. I'll save it. file is downloaded successfully. I'll OK. Hit OK again. Now before we update the product categories XML file, we need to ensure that Edge is a supported product by Ivanti. Now in order to find that out, what we'll do is we'll run a command using the TSSA offline downloader and export the list of available products from Ivanti. So I'll log into my repo server, cd to my offline downloader directory. I've done that already, and I'll run this command. This command will generate a product catalog CSV file which contains the list of all the products that are supported by Ivanti. I'll hit enter. This might take some time, but in interest of time I've already captured the CSV file here. So this is how the CSV file would look like. This is the complete file. It contains all the information here. So I'll sort on family name here. And this is the information for Edge. So this concludes that Edge is a supported product by Ivanti. I'll now show you the tags that we are going to create. So this is how a tag would look like. We need to add this in the XML. So we'll add all these tags. Product category name is Edge, vendor is Microsoft, family name is Edge. That's it. And this is the product categories.xml. As you can see, I've already added the tag here. I'll save it and close it. Now I'll import the edited file into the catalog using the console. Now in order to import the file, I'll go to configuration, patch global configuration, Windows tab. I'll click this button. I'll go to my server here where I have edited the file. This is my edited file. I'll hit OK, apply, and OK. So the product has been added. Let's see if the filter is populated. I'll click the button here. As you can see, the Edge filter is added now. I'll hit OK. I've also created a patch catalog. I'll show you how it would look like. It's similar to what we saw for Notepad earlier. As you can see, the hotfixes patches has been added here as well. So we'll move to our next demonstration, which talks about how to troubleshoot some of the common issues while updating patch catalog due to internet access and other things. So now we'll see how to troubleshoot catalog update job failures due to vendor URL connectivity issues. As you can see, this is the error that you'll see in the job run log, BLPAT 1004, HTTP URL not accessible, and the URL is listed here. The reason for these error is there could be a problem accessing the URL, environmental issues, trouble connecting to the internet, a firewall blocking these URLs, or there could be some issues due to proxy certificates, and we'll see in the demonstration how to add these certificates into the TSSA CSRts file. I have now logged into the TSSA console. This catalog update job is failing. I'll do a show log and see the error. As you can see, the error is same. It's not able to access this URL. So this is a very generic error, and details about this error can be seen in the application server logs. Now I've already exported the app server logs for this particular error, and this is the stack trace. As you can see, it is more or less the same. If you can see on the top, it's same to what we see on the console, but at the bottom we see that it is not able to connect to the proxy server on this host, on this port 31280. Now this is a Squid proxy that I've configured in my TSSA. So I'll show you where the proxy is configured. It's in configuration and patch global configuration. So this is a Squid proxy and the port is 31280. Now by default, the Squid proxy works on port 3128, and that is what I have configured in my proxy as well, but I have accidentally typed 31280 here, and hence the URL is not able to, I mean the application server is not able to connect to the URL, and the same error is seen in the application server logs. Now there can be scenarios wherein you have typed in a username and password and that's incorrect. The same error will be captured in the application server logs. Now if you do not see any error related to the proxy and you just see that it's not able to connect to the URL, you can try accessing the URL from the application server. If you are not able to access the URL, this would mean that there is a firewall rule that is blocking the URL, and you should contact your network team. So another cause for this error could be certificate that is being used on the proxy. Now sometimes proxy administrators import HTTPS or SSL certificates on the proxy. Now if that is done, those certificates need to be imported in BladeLogic in TSSA's Java as well, which is the CA-certs file. Now we'll see in a moment how to import those certificates. Now in order to do that, the first thing that you'll need to do is you'll need to ask your proxy administrators to give you the certificate. The format that that we'll import in TSSA is the .cer format. So let's take a look at the command here first. So the command is pretty straightforward. You need to cd to this particular folder on the application server. C program files, BMC software, BladeLogic app server, and shgre bin. So this is a Windows based application server, so that's the path. For Linux, the path will be wherever you have installed the application server. The key is that we need to find this keytool.exe or the keytool binary in case of Linux based application server, and this is the command that we'll execute. The keytool.exe import alias, the key store is the CA-certs file, and the location of the file where you have copied the certificate from the proxy. Now let's see what happens when we run the command on the application server on the command prompt. I have now logged into the application server and opened a command prompt. I have now I'm into the directory app server and shgre bin. I'll now copy and paste the command here, and once I hit enter, it will ask for the key store password. I'll type in the password, and then it will ask me if I want to add the certificate or not. I'll say yes, and the certificate is added. So this once the certificate is added, the application server needs to be restarted in the application server services needs to be restarted in order for these changes to take effect. And once the services are restarted, the certificate is added, and when you update the catalog, it will be successful. So this is how we troubleshoot issues due to the vendor URL access. In the next section, we'll see how to troubleshoot any issues related to RBAC. So we'll now see how to troubleshoot issues when a catalog update job fails due to a RBAC issue. So the error that we generally see, or which is the most common, is that there is an error while adding or updating a patch. It's followed by the patch name. The reason is that there is a depot object of the same type and the same name already existing in the patch catalog. Now this happens when there is a patch catalog that is created by a role A, let's suppose by a role BL admins, and a catalog admin role tries to update the same patch catalog. The catalog admin it has access to the patch catalog, but it doesn't have access to all the patches that have been added in the patch catalog by the BL admin user, and hence it tries to add the same patches in the catalog, but since they are already added, the job fails. We'll see now how to fix this problem in our demonstration. As we can see, the catalog update job has failed here. Let's see the error. The error here is that it is trying to add a bulletin which is already existing in the patch catalog. Now the reason why this bulletin is already there is because when I created the patch catalog, I created it with BL admins, and once the patch catalog was created and it was updated successfully, I added the permissions in the patch catalog for the role catalog admin. As you can see, the catalog admin role has patch catalog.star permission. It has access to the hotfixes, bulletins, and the irrelevant patches smart group as well. But if I drill down further in the bulletin smart group, I can see that it doesn't have access to these bulletins. We can see that the catalog admin doesn't have access to these bulletins. So that is the reason why whenever a catalog, the catalog admin is trying to update this patch catalog, it is not able to see these patches, and when it is trying to add it again, the catalog update job is failing. Now in order to fix this issue, we have to add an ACL policy on the patch catalog and have to update it. Now in order to do that, I'll first switch to BL admin. I have now switched to the BL admin's role. First of all, let's see what is the ACL policy that I have created. So this is the patch catalog ACL policy. So these are the permissions that are listed in the policy. I have provided patch smart group star, patch catalog star, Windows software star to both BL admins and catalog admin group. Now I'll open the patch catalog and I'll add this RBAC policy. I'll go to the depot object options. I'll click on this button next to RBAC policy. I'll select the patch catalog. I'll save the patch catalog. And I will run a patch catalog update job. As you can see, the catalog update job is now successful. If you scroll down, we can see that an ACL policy has been added as well. I'll switch back to the catalog admin role now. Yeah, so I'm in the catalog admin role. I'll expand bulletins. Now you can see that the catalog update role has access to see these bulletins. And when I click on the permission tab and ACL policy, I can see that the patch catalog ACL policy has been added as well. So this concludes the TSSA Windows patch catalog update job section. We'll now move on to a TSSA patch analysis job, and we'll see how we create a TSSA patch analysis job, how to see the logs, and how to troubleshoot the common issues. Goal of the TSSA patch analysis job is to identify missing patches on the target servers. You can run this job against multiple servers, and the patch analysis job lists the installed and missing patches on the server. As discussed earlier, TSSA uses Ivanti's engine to download patches and scan the target servers. During the patch catalog update job, TSSA stores the Ivanti metadata files for the catalog on the TSSA file server. When an analysis job is executed, TSSA identifies the operating system, service packs, and installed program on the server. It then identifies patches that are available for the combination of installed software. Patches that are applicable to the server but are not currently installed are displayed as missing patch. Before we go further, let's take a moment and talk about how Ivanti classifies patches during this scan. There are three classifications: missing, installed, and effectively installed. The patches that are applicable on the host but are not installed on the server are classified as missing patches. The patches that are applicable and are installed on the server are classified as installed patches. The effectively installed patches, this status is usually applicable for the patches that are superseded. These are patches that were not installed but have been replaced by a newer patch that is installed on the server. For example, suppose you install a patch that replaces 20 earlier patches. While you have only installed one patch, you have effectively installed 20 other patches. Let us now see how a patch analysis job is created and how to check the results. I have now logged into the console. I'll right click on my workspace folder, new, patching jobs, Windows patching job. I'll specify a name here. I have already specified the catalog. I'll hit next. The analysis options, there are two options here, group mode and list mode. The list mode is used in case you want to use any include list. In the group board, there are three options: security patches and non-security patches. The security tools are Ivanti patches. These are for Ivanti engines, and BMC doesn't recommend to install these patches. So I'll select security and non-security patches and I'll hit next. So this create remediation checkbox is in case you want to remediate as well. I'll just create an analysis job, so I'll leave it unchecked. I'll hit next. I have to specify a server here. I'll expand this, go to my smart group, pick any server. I'll hit next. This is just in case you want to send any email notifications. Hit next. Execute job now. Next. This is properties. These are properties in case you want to put the job in debug mode. I'll leave it as is. Hit next. This is for the authorization tab. I'll hit finish. And we can see that our patch analysis job has started. You can see that it has picked the target 10. So the first thing that it does is it copies the metadata, which is Windows patch data.zip file, to the target server, and it then runs the scan to identify missing patches. It might take some time, so I'll close this and I'll open a patch analysis job that I ran already. So I'll right click on this job and do a show results. So as you can see, these are the runs here. I'll just expand any run. I'll show you how the missing patches look like for any server. I'll go to successful targets. There are 4 targets. You can see it is listing installed and missing patches. If you expand further here, click on install patches, it is going to list all the installed patches. If you click on missing patches, it is going to list all the missing patches as well. If you click on this analysis run, right click, you can do a show log as well, which can show you logs for individual servers. I'll close this. Now in case you want to check the debug logs of this analysis, the debug logs contain the logs that are generated by the Ivanti scan engine. You can do a right click on the run and download the log package. I'll save the log package somewhere. I'll save it. Once I hit save, I'll see this window. It categorizes the servers in the job by 3 categories: failures, successful, and warnings. I'll just select the successful targets here. I'll select any target. You can select all the targets as well and hit OK. Once you hit OK, you see at the bottom right hand corner the download log package has started. So it will download the log package on the specific folder that I selected. Now this download log package might take some time, so I'll show you a log package that I have already downloaded. So the log package is a zip file. I have already extracted the contents. It contains the job run logs, the RSCD logs from the target server, app server log, and the debug log from the Ivanti scan. So I'll just show you how this folder structure is. These are the RSCD logs. These are here the app server logs, and these are the patching debug logs. So these are 3 files here: the Windows patch data.zip file, which is the metadata file; Shavlik results, it contains the results of the patches that were scanned. As you can see, these are the patches that were scanned. It will show here which of these patches are installed or missing. And the analysis trace contains the detection logic for these patches. So we'll talk about how to read these files in the upcoming demos. So this is how we create a patch analysis job in TSSA and export the debug logs. In the upcoming demos, we'll talk about some of the most common errors that we encounter while running the patch analysis job in TSSA. So we'll now see how to troubleshoot false negatives. The problem statement is that there is a patch which is believed to be applicable on the operating system, but is not reported as missing by TSSA patch analysis job. The logs that we'll need to troubleshoot this problem are log package. We saw in the patch analysis demo how to generate a log package. DPT trace if needed. We'll see how to generate a DPT trace as well. And the most important thing is the name of the patch. I have now logged into the console, and there's this job where I'm trying to look for the patch MS20-03 MR81 4541509. This patch, it seems that this patch is applicable on the operating system, but when I ran a patch analysis job, I don't see this patch as missing. As you can see, this MS20 patches are over here, and we don't see this patch MR81. We don't see this patch. So whenever I encounter such problem, the very first thing that I do is I try to search about this patch, what this patch is. So I'll open Google. I'll search about the patch here. This is the Microsoft link for this patch. I'll open it. So this is what the patch is. It was released on March 10th. It's a monthly roll-up patch, and it applies to 2012 R2. So you can click on more and see the list of operating system. So the target that I used was a 2012 R2, so it seems that this patch is applicable on the server. Now I'll try to see more information about this patch. I'll scroll down, how to get this update. Now this is a very important section, how to get this update. So in this section you get to know about the prerequisites, usually the SSU, which is to be installed on the server before you install this particular patch. So it says that in order to install this patch, we need to first install this SSU 4540725. So if this SSU is not installed on the server, TSSA will not report the patch as missing. It will first report the SSU as missing, and we'll have to install the SSU, and when we'll run the analysis again, the patch will be reported as missing. So we'll first see if this SSU is listed in missing patches or not, or if it is installed or not. Now as you can see, this is MS2003 patches are here. The SSU is not listed as missing. Let's see here in the installed ones. I'll sort via bulletin ID. I'll scroll down. I think I missed it at the top. Yeah. So you can see that the SSU is actually installed. The name of the SSU is 4540725. Now the SSU is also installed. So what is the reason why this patch is not applicable? Is not reported as missing. So I'll go to the catalog. I'll try to see some of the properties of this patch. So I'll go to the depot. I'll go to my catalog here, patch catalog, and this is the patch analysis, window 2012-16, and this is, I've created a smart group for this patch. I'll just move it to the right hand side here. Now you can see this is the patch here. Now I'll just see if this patch is superseded or not. So if I just click on the patch, so you can see that these are the properties here. I'll scroll down, I'll expand the extended properties, and I'll see if this patch is superseded. So I can see that the patch is superseded. It is actually superseded. So this is an old patch. So it is superseded by 4550961. So let's see if we are reporting this particular patch as missing, or if this patch is installed or not. 4550961. This is definitely not installed here. Let's see in the missing patches. I'll scroll down. Yeah, 4550961. This is the patch. Now we are reporting this patch is missing. I'll just confirm once again the name of the patch. So 4550961. So as we can see that we are reporting the patch that which supersedes this particular patch as missing. That is why we are not reporting the patch as missing. So whenever we are running a patch analysis job via TSSA, uh, we only report the greatest patch as missing. So suppose your server was last patched in January 2019. The last patch that was installed on the server was January 2019 rolling update. Now this is May 2020, so there are a lot of rolling updates that would have been installed, I mean that would have been released by Microsoft. But when you run a patch analysis job via TSSA, so the patch that we are going to show you as missing, it will be the latest and the greatest patch. So the greatest patch right now that I have in the catalog is the April one. So that is the reason why we are not reporting this particular patch as missing. Now if there is a requirement in the organization that you need to install this patch, there is a way you can force TSSA to report an older patch as missing. Now in order to do that, you'll create a smart group. You can see I have already created a smart group. I'll double click and open the job. I have now opened the job. I'll go to the analysis options and I will select this patch as an include. I will select an include list which contains this patch. Now when we use an include list, the supersedence checks are not done by a TSSA. So if the include list contains, if the latest patch that is in the include list is the March monthly rollup, we will report this particular patch as missing even though it is superseded. So I've already created a patch analysis job with this include list. I'll show you the results here. Analysis, and yes, as you can see here, the patch is now being reported as missing. So the high level steps are, in case there is a patch which is expected to be missing via TSSA via TSSA, but it is not being reported as missing, the first thing that you should do is you should try to search more about the patch. If the patch is applicable to your operating system, let's suppose if the patch is applicable to a certain version of a software, let's say .NET, if it is applicable to .NET 4.5, do you have 4.5 installed on the server or not? In case you have all the prerequisites met, you should make sure that the patch is superseded, if the patch is superseded or not. If the patch is superseded, just see if the latest patch is being reported as missing or not, like we saw here. Now if you have checked everything and you don't seem to find any answer why this patch is reported as missing, you can always raise a case with us. Now when you're raising a case with us, the information that we need, as we saw on the slide, was the name of the patch, the log package that we saw, and DPD trace. Now we'll see DPD trace in an upcoming demo right now. But so a DPD trace is actually a trace that is required by Ivanti. Now when we are not able to identify why a certain patch is not applicable on the server, there are chances that there is a problem with the Ivanti detection logic. So in order to fix that or correct that, what we do is we raise a case with Ivanti, and DPD trace logs are required for Ivanti to check the configuration on the operating system and see if their detection logic is correct or not. If their detection logic is correct, they provide us a reason why they don't think that this patch is applicable on the operating system or not. But if they find that there is something wrong with their detection logic, they usually correct it. And once they correct it, all we need to do is run a catalog update job. The latest metadata gets downloaded and the detection logics are updated, and when you run a next patch analysis job, you see the particular patch as missing. So we'll now see how to run DPD trace. So DPD trace has to be downloaded from this Ivanti URL. Now I have logged into a server and opened this URL. There is an exe which is to be downloaded from here. Now this exe just runs a scan on the server to determine what are the missing patches. It doesn't install anything on the server, so it's absolutely safe to run DPD trace. Now I've already downloaded it and extracted as well, so I'll just go to the folder and there is this DPD trace GUI. I'll launch it. Now there are two options, local and remote. So remote option is used in case you have downloaded DPD trace on a server and you are running it on a remote host. So I'm going to use the same server, so I'll use local. The IP will be populated automatically. I'll put in the username. I'll put in the password. So I'll not change any other options, I'll just run it. So while the DPD trace is running, I'll just walk you through one other thing which is important here. So the DPD trace, when you run a DPD trace, it connects to the internet and it downloads the metadata file. Now in case the machine where you are running the DPD trace, it's not, just a minute, it's not it doesn't have internet access, you'll have to download this patchdata.zip file and put it in the data files folder. So the instructions are mentioned in the link. So this is the message that you'll receive once the DPD trace is successful, and the logs of the DPD trace are copied to send to support folder. I'll hit OK and I'll show you the folder. So I'm now in the send to support folder. This is the DPD trace zip. I've extracted it, and this is the folder where XML file and a text file which is similar to the Shavlik results.xml and the analysis trace file. There are certain registry exports as well. So after you generate the DPD trace, just send the zip file to support and we'll take it forward. So this was all about troubleshooting false negatives. We'll now go forward and see how to troubleshoot false positives. We are now going to talk about false positives. False positive is a patch reported as missing by TSSA, but is either installed or not applicable on the server. In order to troubleshoot this, we need the following: name of the patch, the log package to check the detection logic, and DPD trace in case we need to raise a case with Ivanti. Now there are instances where a false positive is detected in a patch deploy job. If that's the case, we will also need to collect deploy logs to see the error. We will talk more about this when we go to the deploy demo later. But for now, we will see what to do if a patch is believed to be a false positive post a patch analysis job. I have now opened the job run log where I have simulated a scenario where the patch is incorrectly reported as missing by TSSA. As we can see here, this is a missing patch 4550929, and the patch is actually installed on the server. Now, whenever a false positive is reported, the first thing we should do is check the job run log and see if something stands out. So I'll just check the job run log. I'll right click here and do a show log. As we can see that the job is completed with warnings, I'll go to the target tree here, and at the bottom we see that there is a pending reboot on this machine. So what I did here was that I just installed the patch on the server and I did not reboot the server. Now for this patch, a reboot was actually required for the changes to take effect, and hence TSSA noticed a pending reboot for this patch and reported the patch as missing. We can fix this by just rebooting the server. I'll close this. Now I have this patch here which is reported as missing 4055271. That's the patch name, and the queue number here is 40544182. As we can see here, the line that I have highlighted, 4054182. Now this patch is reported as missing. Now there are scenarios where a patch is reported as missing and the patch is actually installed on the server. However, there is no pending reboot on the server. Now as I said, that if there is a false positive, the first thing that we do is to check the job run log. So I'll just check the job run log here as well. I'll do a right click, show log, and on target 6. So if you check the job run log, there is no pending reboot. It's absolutely clean. Now, the very first thing that we should do here is to find out why this particular patch is missing. What's the reason? So I'll just click on this patch here. I'll scroll to the right, and we see that there is a file version mismatch. So there is a file version 4.7.2.106.0 is detected instead of the expected patch 4.7.2612. So there is a file version mismatch, and that is why this patch is being reported as missing. I have now logged into the server. We can see that the patch is actually installed on the server. If you see at the top 4054182, the patch is actually installed. Now what I'll do here is I'll check the log package and see the patch debug logs to find out more about the file version. So I have already downloaded the log package and extracted it on this server. So I'll just go to the folder. So I'll go inside the patch support. I'll go to target 6. I'll open the Savlik results.xml to find more about this patch. So this patch 4054182, the missing reason is same what we saw on the console. File version 2106 is detected instead of this 2612. So since it is less than what is expected, we are reporting this patch as missing. However, the name of the file is not mentioned here. So we'll check the analysis trace log to see what is the name of the file. I'll open this trace.log here, Notepad++. I'll search for this patch here. And yeah, here is the patch, and if you see here, this is the line. I'll highlight it. So we can see this is the name of the file, C Windows Microsoft .NET Framework v4.0.30319, and the name of the file is system.activities.dll. So the expected version is 4.7.2612, and the actual version is 2106, and there's a version mismatch, and that's why we are reporting the patch as missing. Now I'll just go to the file and see if it is actually present and what is the version here. This is the system activities.dll. I'll go to properties, go to details here. As we can see, the version is 2106. So we have confirmed that the file version is actually less than expected. We'll now have to verify that if this detection logic is in line to what Microsoft says or not. So I'll just open the Microsoft support link for this patch. So this is the link. I've already opened it. So you can see at the top the link is 4054182. I'll scroll down. So usually there is a file information tab somewhere here. I'll go down, and I think it's the file attributes one. Yeah. So I'll try to search the patch. Yeah, so here it is, system.activities.dll. this is for x86 version. My system is 64-bit, so I'll just search for the other one. Sorry, yeah, this is the one for 64-bit. So this is 4.7.2612, which is what was expected. So we can now see that the detection logic is in line with what Microsoft says. The file version is not what it should be after installing the patch. And even though the patch is actually installed, the installation is either incomplete or corrupted. We need to show this to the system administrators and ask them to fix this. Now we saw that the DLL in question here, the version of the DLL present on the server was actually less than what it should be. But there can be a scenario where the version of the DLL that is present on the server and the version of the DLL on the Microsoft support page is exactly the same. If that's the case, it would imply that the Ivanti detection logic is incorrect. In that case, we have to generate a DPD trace and send it to BMC support with all the details to raise a case with Ivanti and fix the detection logic. So this concludes the patch analysis demo. We will now move on to the final section of this webinar, which is patch remediation. We are now going to speak about TSSA Windows patch remediation. Remediation is the step where patches are actually installed on the server. It's the process of creating BL packages based on missing patches on the server and installing them using deploy jobs. There are three phases of a deploy job: simulate, stage, and commit. In the simulate phase, the deploy job checks basic connectivity and the job options from the application server to the target server. In the stage phase, the application server copies the patches from the repository server to the target server. The actual installation of the patch takes place in the commit stage. So before we start the demo, I would like to speak about some of the logs that we can collect in case a deploy job fails. The first log is the job run logs. It's similar to a job run log that we collect for a patch analysis failure or a catalog update job failure. So in case a deploy job fails, the first thing that we can collect is the job run log. It contains the basic messages from the console. You have to just export it from the console and that's it. RSCD logs from the target server. It's needed to see, in case there are some GNI calls made by the application server, there are some errors in those. We can see that in the RSCD log. The transaction logs, and these pair logs are very important for deploy. These are the BL deploy log and BL target job manager logs. We'll see them in the demo, but in case a deploy job fails, we need to collect the BL deploy and BL target job manager logs. These logs tell us the command which failed during the commit phase of the deploy. Application server log. So as we spoke earlier, there are three phases of a deploy job: simulate, stage, and commit. So in the stage phase, the application server copies the patches from the repository server to the target server. So the logs of the stage phase are captured in the application server logs. Now the last is the deployment engine log. We call it the stdeploy.log. Now this log is specific to Windows patch deployment. So it contains some of the logs from the Shavlik engine that is being used in deploy. In case there are some failures in that, it will be captured in the stdeploy.log. The location is mentioned here. It is inside the RSCD installation folder, transactions, Shavlik, and logs. I have now logged into the console. So we'll first start with how to create a deploy job. So I'll just do a right click on the folder, new, patching jobs, Windows patching job. This is similar to what we did in the patch analysis. As we can see that the catalog is already specified, the job folder I've already selected. I'll hit next. So this is the option that was similar to the analysis phase. I'll leave it as is. I'll hit next. So this is where we can provide the details for the deploy job. I'll just first check the create remediation artifacts. So when a deploy job is created post an analysis job, there is a batch job created and the deploy job is created as a part of batch job. So in the first option here, there is a batch job deploy job package prefix name. So this prefix name will be added into the batch job that will be batch and deploy job that will be created, along with the BL packages that will be created for the missing patches as well. So these packages will be saved in this location. I'll not change it, and the batch jobs will be saved in this location. I'll not change it as well. Now we'll talk about some of the deploy job options. I'll click here. Now there are three options: job options, phase options, and phases and schedules. So there are a lot of options. We'll not talk about all of them. I'll just walk you through some of the important options. The first one is flow control. There are two options. By default is by server. The second one is by phase. So by server is a phase where the job proceed as far as it can go for one particular server. So in case there are multiple servers in the deploy job, in case one server fails, the job continues to deploy patches on the other server. So I mean, when the deploy job completes a phase on on a server, it goes to the next phase and then on the next phase. So this option is useful when you want a job to complete on as many servers as possible. A failure on one server does not I mean, impact the other servers. Now by phase option, as the name suggests, it goes by phase. So in this, the job completes a phase on all the server before proceeding to the next phase. So there are three phases in the deploy. We already spoke about this. So in case there are 5 servers in our deploy job, it will first complete simulate on all the 5 servers, then stage, and then commit. Now this option is useful when you want a deployment to be completely successful, such as when you are updating a web-based application. So this is where you can use this phase option. Now the other important option here is this reboot option. Now if I see here, there are quite a few options. Now the first one is used item defined reboot setting. Now the item here signifies the patch. Now use item defined reboot setting is when we are deploying a patch. If the patch requires a reboot, then the server will be rebooted if we select this. So suppose if we are installing 5 patch and all 5 of them need reboot, then the deploy job will reboot the server 5 times. Ignore item defined reboot. So this will ignore any reboots. So I mean, in case of 5 patches are deployed, the server will not be rebooted any single time. Use item defined reboot setting and reboot at the end of the job. It means that it will do the reboot based on what are the reboot settings of the patch, and after everything is done, it will reboot the server after the successful installation of all the patches. Ignore item defined reboot setting and reboot at the end of the job. So this is the most preferred option. So this ignores all the reboot instructions that are in a particular patch. So suppose we are installing 5 patches and all of them require reboot. So the patches will be installed. All patches will be installed in one go, one after another, and the server will not be rebooted. And once everything is installed, the server will be rebooted at the end of the job. So in this option, there will only be one reboot. Consolidate any after deployment reboots until the end of the job. So this option means suppose there are 5 patches and 3 of them need reboot and 2 of them don't. So it will hold all the reboots and it will just do a reboot at the end. In case none of the patches require a reboot, it won't reboot the server. We'll now talk about phase options. So the first option is simulate and stage option. Test for sufficient staging directory space on target server for phase. So this option enables you to select the phase where you want the check for the space on the server. So suppose we are copying patches, there is a check to make sure that the server can hold all the patches that needs to be copied. So we can select in which phase do we want that test to happen. It usually happens in stage, but we can select simulate and stage. So whatever you want, you can select here. So there are these commit and undo options. We'll leave it by default. Now there is this third option, preserve staging area on failure. This comes in very handy during troubleshooting. Now when the application server is copying files, the patches on the target server on the staging area, and post the patches are deployed, we clear the staging area. Now the staging area contains the patches that needs to be installed and some of the temporary files that are created on the fly during installation. Now once a job is finished, these files are cleared by default. Now there are situations where some of the commands that use these particular files to package the payload and do other things, the command fail for some unknown reason, and we need to run the command manually on the server to see what is the error that the operating system is throwing. Now if that's the case and the files are not present, we won't be able to run the command. So in that scenarios, we rerun the deploy by checking this option, preserve staging area on failure. Now when the job fails, it keeps the staging area intact and we can run those commands to see what is the error. We'll see an example in an upcoming demo about this particular option. Then there are these pre and post commands. Now, suppose you have you want to patch a server where you have a database running or an application running, and you want to stop the application server before you patch. Before you install the patches, and once the patches are applied, you want to start the application or database. So you can specify those commands here. Pre commands to stop that application, post command to start that application. So you can mention any script as well. You can put a script on the server and you can call it from the pre and post commands. So that's the useful of these use of these commands. I'll cancel it, and we'll now go to phases and schedules. Now the first option is phase selection. What are the phases that you want to select? You can uncheck simulate. If you do that, the simulate won't happen. So as I said earlier, in simulate phase we just check for the connectivity. So if you don't if you choose not to go for the simulate phase, that check will not happen and the job will start from the staging phase directly. Now this option here is there is stage direct and stage indirect. So in case you want to use repeaters, then you can use stage indirect, and if you want to if you don't want to use repeaters, you'll use a stage direct. Now I'll just take a few moments and speak about repeaters. So the repeaters, they help to optimize the bandwidth in deploy. So suppose your application server and your managed target servers, they are in different geolocations. Then when the application server is copying patches on the target server, it is trying to copy. Suppose there are 50 targets, it is going to copy a patch, let's say 1.5 GB for Windows 2016. It will start that 1.5 GB copy simultaneously on 50 servers over a WAN. Now that can take time. Now if you choose to use a repeater is nothing but a server with an RSCD agent. It will be deployed on the target server, and when the when the application server is copying the patches in stage phase, it will once copy the patch or the patches on the repeater, and then repeater is going to copy the patches on all the servers. So there will be one connection open over a WAN, and those connections to multiple targets, it will be open from the repeater to the targets over a LAN. So that's the use of repeater. Now there are scheduling options. So the first one is execute job now. If I select this option, execute job now, once I finish the job, it will start with analysis, and as soon as the analysis is done, it will start the remediation phase as well. Now if do not execute is selected, then the deploy job will not be executed. So once the analysis is done, it will create BL packages and create a deploy job, but it won't execute. You can choose to execute the job manually. Now there is an option execute selected phases sequentially. So if you want your deploy to happen at a certain time, you can choose this option and it will start the simulate, stage and commit sequentially at a given time. Now there is this fourth option, execute selected phases as specified below. Now this option comes in very handy where there are very stringent timelines to deploy patches. Now when we speak of a deploy job, there are three phases: simulate, stage and commit. So there's not much going on in simulate phase, but staging is a phase that can take a lot of time depending upon the bandwidth. Now and of course depending upon the bandwidth and the number of missing patches. Now suppose you have a limited downtime window of 2 or 3 hours, and you want the staging to happen as well, and you want to install patches in that particular time window. So what you can do is you can select a simulate and stage to happen way before the downtime window, and you can set the commit phase to happen within that downtime window, because when we speak of simulate and stage, we are not installing anything. The actual installation happens in commit. So you can schedule this in a time where when there is not much load on your network, so that the patches are copied before the commit phase, and when there is downtime window, you can maybe um, s- set the commit phase to run at a particular time. So suppose uh, you have a patching window on a Saturday morning from 10 to 12, then you can set the commit to 10 to 12 a.m. or 10 a.m. On a Saturday, and you can do a simulate and stage on a Friday. So that's the use of this particular option. Now there is this option called maintenance exclusion window options. Now in case you are using maintenance and exclusion windows, you can set this option. If you check this, the deploy will pause on the server. So whatever activity is going, so suppose you your exclusion window starts at 10 a.m. So by 10 a.m. Whatever the job is finished, it will finish it, and then it will pause the job. Then you can specify pause before in minutes. So I mean, as I said, if your, let's say, exclusion windows is at 10 a.m. and you don't want this job to wait until 10 a.m., then you can maybe specify a time that pause the job 10 minutes before the exclusion window, so it will be paused at 9:50 a.m. So that's the option. So I'll hit OK. So these next options are similar to what we have in analysis. So we've already spoken about them, so I'll just cancel it. So I'll now show you how a deploy job result would look like. Now this is a run which is similar to an analysis. If you expand it, there is an analysis run, and then there is this remediation run. So if you expand the remediation run, you can see that there is this download run and there are these deploy runs. Now when we were speaking about the catalog update job, we spoke about the download from vendor option. Now when we uncheck the download from vendor option, the patches are not downloaded in the with the catalog update job. There are patches which are the patches which are downloaded are the ones which are missing on the target servers. So the download happens in the remediation phase. So before the deploy kicks in, before the deploy starts a simulate, it starts a download run where all the missing patches are downloaded. I'll show you the log real quick. As you can see here, so this is where the patch was downloaded. I'll close it. I'll go to the deploy run here, and in the successful target, if I click on the target name, it will show me simulate, stage, and commit. So all these three are green. It means that the job was successful. Now there is one other thing that I spoke about, that when a deploy is when a remediation is started, it creates a batch job. Now if you want to go directly to the batch job, or if you want to check the results of the batch job, you can do a right click on the remediation run, and you can do this show generated batch job deploy results, and it will show you the results of the deploy job, which is the same that we saw in the remediation run as well. Now this feature is handy. Suppose you have selected the option do not execute in remediate, and the deploy job or the batch job is created. Now you want to execute it, so you can just right click and open generate batch job like this, and you can just execute it. Now there is one other option here. If you see here, this is from a batch job. This is a result of one of the deploy jobs that I ran. As we can see that this job was successful, but when you click on, when you check the phase here, this target 10, simulate, stage, and commit. Now if you see this commit sign, it is not like the other successful sign. Now when you see these two green arrows, it would signify that the job was successful, but there was a pending reboot. So is, let's suppose you have when you're creating a deploy job, you have selected the option that ignore item defined reboot. Now when the patches were installed, there were a couple of patches that require reboot, but since you have selected the options in the job to not reboot the server, it will mark the job as successful, but this small sign here will signify that there is a pending reboot on the server. I'll click on this third job run. So when we started the demo, I showed you how to create a patch remediation job. So we started from the scratch. We created a patching job, which was an analysis plus remediation job. Now let's say you have just created an analysis only job and you want to do a direct remediation. So you can just do a right click on the server name, remediate server. This is also a way to create a remediation job or a deploy job. So I'll close all these tabs. We'll just pick a job which to see some of the failures. Now I'll open this job here. It's a patch deploy job, patch analysis plus deploy job. I've done a right click and show results. As we can see that this job got failed. Let's see here. If I go to remediation, deploy runs, and the failed targets, I'll click on the target name here, and the job failed in commit. So the simulate stage was successful. So patches were copied on the server, but when we were trying to install the patch, it got failed. Now if we see here, the error that's here is 4001. So this is a very generic code for BL deploy. 4001 means that the deployment got failed. So let's suppose you are installing 50 patches, and out of 50, 49 patches got installed and one got failed. You will still get a job failure, exit code 4001. If all of the patches got failed, you'll still get the same error. So 4001 just means mean that the deployment got failed. We will have to check the BL deploy logs to know what is the exact error there. So I'll just close it, and to check the BL deploy logs, I'll log into the target server. So I have now logged into the target server. I'll go to my RSCD installation folder, C program file, BMC software, Blade Logic, RSCD, transactions, log. I'll click on log, BL deploy and BL target job manager. I'll click on the BL deploy, open it. I'll scroll down here, and we can see that it got failed with the exit code 4001. Now we'll have to identify what is the error here. So this job BL deploy was trying to install a patch on the server, and the patch deployment got failed. Now we'll have to see why did that installation fail. So what I usually do in such scenarios is I'll just check for this string, return code token. So the deploy log is pretty huge. So when we are troubleshooting for especially around what is the error code by which a patch got failed, so and so, if there are one or two patches, then it's pretty easy to troubleshoot. But if there are a lot of patches, then you cannot just you can just scroll through the whole log, but it takes time. So if you just search by this string, you'll just see the error for which this patch got failed. Now you see here the return code is 2359302. So this is a failure return code. So when we speak of Windows patch deploy code, there are two codes which are treated as a success code. The first one is 0, which means that patch was installed successfully, and the second one is 3010, which would mean that the patch is installed but a reboot is pending. So apart from this, everything else is considered as a failure. Now this 2359302, this is a Windows exit code. So if we want to know what is the meaning of this error code, we'll have to convert it to hexadecimal. So I'll open the calculator, and this is the error code 2359302. If I convert this to hexadecimal, it is 24006. So I'll open Google and go to a Microsoft page here. This talks about what are the generic Microsoft errors, and I have highlighted here, this is 24006. This means that the patch is already installed. So this is again a false positive which was detected during deploy. So there was I'll show you the job first. So if you see here, when I opened the job, there was a pending reboot on the server. So the patch was installed before this analysis job, but the server was not rebooted. Since there was a pending reboot, when we ran an analysis, it gave us, it showed us that the patch is missing even though it was installed, but a reboot was pending. And when the deploy job was trying to install this patch, the patch deployment got failed because there was a pending reboot. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the patch analysis demo, that there can be a scenarios related to false positive when you identify a false positive during the patch deploy phase. Now whenever that happens, so whenever you are trying to you have executed an analysis successfully, and you're trying to deploy a patch, and the patch got the deployment got failed, so the very first thing that we do in the such scenarios is go to the go to the target server and open the BL deploy log and see what is, so in case you are deploying multiple patches, we'll have to see what all patches got failed, because as I spoke earlier, 4001 or a deploy failure would mean that one or many patches got failed. It doesn't mean that everything got failed. So we will have to then search with that return code string and figure out what is the how many patches got failed and what is the error. Then we can probably search for that error, and once we identify that there was this particular error, and if we need to know, if we want to confirm if this patch is actually applicable on the server or not, like in this case 24000006, the message was pretty clear that the patch is already installed. So we went in to our patch analysis job and found out that there was a pending reboot. So if there is any other error code, we'll again go back to the patch analysis. If you remember, we did an example in patch analysis where we saw how to what is the detection logic. We saw the debug the patch debug logs, the log package Shavlik results.xml, why a certain patch was missing, and how did we verify that the patch was actually missing or not. So if you see a failure in deploy, so we'll have to go back to the analysis and confirm that the patch detection logic was correct or not. So if the patch detection logic was correct, but the patch is failing, this would imply that there is a problem with the operating system. Now if we figure out that the patch deployment logic was incorrect, and we are reporting a patch as missing which is actually not applicable, then we'll collect the dpd trace logs, the log package, and you can raise a case with BMC support so that we can take it forward with Shavlik and fix the detection logic. So some of these deploy logs, they are very much related to analysis sometimes, because if something is failing in the deploy, the first question is, the first question obviously is why did the patch installation got failed, and then we are asking if the particular patch was applicable or not, because if we are trying to install a patch which is not applicable, it is going to fail. So you'll have to verify whether the analysis was giving you a correct result or not. So there are, more often than not, the patch deploy troubleshooting goes hand in hand with the analysis troubleshooting. So in the last example, we saw that the patch deploy job failed while trying to install a patch on the server. The installation command was fired and it gave a bad exit code, and the job got failed. Now there can be some scenarios where a patch deploy job may fail even before it runs a patch installation command. So here is one such example. I'll just open this. Deploy fail target 7. So I'll click on commit. Error 4001 deployment failed, and this is non-zero exit code 5. Command return non-zero exit code 5, access is denied. Now this is an error where it says that the access is denied. So we don't know where this access denied error is coming from, because when you run a patch analysis, then you need administrative access on the server as well. So obviously there is an access because the analysis was done successfully. So we'll have to figure out where this exit code is coming from. There might be scenarios wherein a job failed with exit code 5 and saying access denied, but your system administrator might come to you saying that okay, this is not the right error. I tried to install the patch using the mapped user on the OS, and the installation is getting successful. So I mean, we don't understand where this access denied is coming from. Now, as I said earlier, there can be scenarios that even before, I mean, the deploy job, where a deploy job can fail even before the installation command is executed. Now, in case we want to figure out what is the reason for this error, we'll have to go to the server and check the BL deploy logs. So I'll log into the target 7. So I'm on target 7 now, and I have opened the BL deploy. As you can see, it got failed with 4001. Now if we scroll up here, we should see that access error somewhere. You can see that this is access denied, exit code 5. Now if we scroll up, we will see that the error is coming here. C program file, BMC software, Blade Logic, and there is a program stdeploy.exe. It is executing and it is giving us this access denied error. So we can see that we are not even trying to install anything. There is a program stdeploy.exe that we use before that we use to package payload and check other things before we actually install a patch, and this stdeploy.exe is failing with exit code 5, and hence the job is failing. Now this is the command right here, and if you see here, this stdeploy.exe, this is running on this ctemp stage. So as I said earlier, so when you're doing a deploy, the application server copies the patches on a staging area, and once the job is finished, successful or failed, the staging area is cleared. But we saw an option in when I was speaking of the deploy job creation, there is an option where we can actually preserve the staging area in case the job fails. So here I have already preserved the staging area. I'll go to the folder here, see temp stage, and this is 68. This was the folder, I believe. Yeah, that one ending in 68, FE68. Yes, that's the one. So as you can see, this is the staging area. This is the 7075, which is actually the payload is. So it's trying to package that payload, and when it is doing it using the stdeploy.exe, we got an error, the access denied. Now if you want to simulate the error, what we can do here is I can just run the command. I can open a command prompt and run the same command. So I've done that already here. I open the command prompt, and when I run the same command, I get an access denied error here as well. So this is again not something that is related to TSSA. It is an access denied. So we'll have to figure out why. Even if we are using an administrator user to run this job, and still we are getting access denied, then we'll have to, you might have to involve your system administrators to figure out what is the problem. There are certain tool like process monitor which you can use to identify what is going on. Now in this particular scenario, so just to replicate this problem, what I did was I changed the permission on the stdeploy folder. stdeploy.exe. I'll show that to you. See program files, BMC software, Blade Logic, RSCD, SPIN, and here is the stdeploy.exe. If I go to the security tab, it would say that I don't have permission even though I am administrator. Now I did that just to simulate an error. So we have seen scenarios where sometimes an antivirus or any other program, it blocks the execution of these exe because it considers them as a malware, so it blocks the execution. So we run some process monitoring tool to identify when we execute the command what are the files being read, what is the problem, and that is how we troubleshoot these issues. So we saw here that even though the patch installation is actually not taking place. There are certain things that we are doing before the patch installation, which if there is some problem in those executing those commands or those exes, there can we can see that the deploy job may fail as well. So this was about the BL deploy log. Now, as when we were talking about the logs to collect, we talked about stdeploy.log as well. So this stdeploy.exe it writes into the stdeploy log .log as well. Now in this scenario, since there was it didn't have any permission, so it just gave an error right away. But if the command actually executes and it fails within the execution, then it will actually write the error to the stdeploy.log, which is inside rscd transactions shavlik log. So there is only one stdeploy log. It's not unique for each deployment. So for all the deployments, the errors will be logged here. So you'll have to match the timings in the deploy to make sure that you are checking for the correct error. For your reference, these are some of the links we used during the webinar. The playlist of some of the videos related to Windows patching, some of the links which talk about Ivanti detection logic and classifications, and the documentation which talks about the logs used to troubleshoot Windows patch deploy issues in TSSA. I hope you found the webinar helpful. To summarize, we spoke about three main components of TSSA Windows patching. They are patch catalog update, patch analysis job, patch remediation job. We saw how to troubleshoot some of the typical problems encountered during Windows patching and which logs to collect in case you need some assistance from BMC. This concludes my presentation. I will now hand over to Greg. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rohit. Now I'll take us through self-help and contacting BMC. Our YouTube channel where this webinar recording will be posted is at this link. There are other webinars and other useful how-to videos on this channel. And our Connect with TrueSight webinar schedule is available in communities at this link. As always, technical support via web, phone, and email, and these social channels. That will conclude this month's session. Thank you for joining.